Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ here with Tim's Nation to bring you my list that will be taking on Lane's Votan later this evening. This list is the list that I'm working on and constructing versus Sam Dayton's challenge about Adeptus Mechanicus. And like I said, I feel like the reason that Ad Mech is so low in the Meta Watch, one of the lowest factions, is because of the cost. And I think we'll talk about that more later tonight when Lane and I have the ability to converse before our game. But right now, we're here to talk about the list because this is going to be a list that is going to be evolving, changing, a lot of moving pieces. And after the first draft, where it was just put a whole bunch of stuff on the table, I didn't really have too much direction because a lot of it I needed to see how it actually interacted. Was I able to make these things function together with some of these battle line buffs and everything else to see if this would work? And after the first game, I got a lot of data from it, a lot of information, learned a lot. And now here we are once again with the second Mechanicus list. A lot of it looks the same, but also a big portion of it looks very different. So as always, guys, please like, share, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell to get notified for all the content we bring you here. Leave comments down below. I am definitely open for some feedback into this. I definitely will be trying this out, so we'll see how some of this stuff goes before we go to that next level of do things need to change. And I'm sure there's a couple things that maybe some Mechanicus players might be like, why are you running that? Well, we'll see. All right, with all that said, let's jump over and take a look at the list that I'm bringing today. All right, here we go, Mechanicus. And this is a big army, 109 models in this list, most of them being Rangers. And I think that's one of the things that is discouraging about this army and building it off the get-go is that in the more competitive nature of it, it seems like we're putting a lot of Rangers and a lot of infantry down. And when you start an army, you kind of want to collect a whole bunch of different stuff that it has to offer. So having to just go Ranger, or Vanguard is kind of a discouraging list to go through. However, it's good that I have the majority of this stuff with just some stuff that still needs some paint. Got it primed, and we're going to start working on painting these things this week. All right, here we go. So this list, I have two enhancements, both of which have no effect over the course of the game. They're all pre-game stuff, one of which is one of my marshals will have the enhancement to allow me to infiltrate a unit as well as scout move it. And then another enhancement that's going to allow me to pick 3 infantry units up and redeploy them after we know who goes first. And that'll also be on a marshal. So not really relevant to the overall game as we move forward, but definitely a lot of pre-game stuff. All right, let's start off with some vehicles. So we got the Dune Crawler. Dune Crawler's still coming back because we have a lot of, well, battle line units. He gives a 4-up invulnerable save to the models that were in 6. Very crucial there that it is models. So he's going to be a nice little boost to move up the field and give a 4-up invulnerable save to all my infantry as they're moving up the field. And also kind of be a distraction that it's like, well, do I shoot at the infantry or do I try to take this vehicle out? And I think that he probably will get beat up a little bit, but that's also why we're bringing an Engine Seer. Now, I jump over the Engine Seer quickly, but I'm going with the Icarus array because I like the volume of shots on my Dune Crawler. And then we jump over into our Engine Seer. Engine Seer is going to be giving us a 5-up Feel No Pain as well as healing D3 on a vehicle. He will be lown up with these vehicles, and then he gets really angry if you blow up one of his vehicles. I say one of because we will also be bringing 6 Dragoons, 2 3-man squads of Dragoons. These guys definitely got hit pretty hard with the new Codex. Not being able to take 6-man squads kind of hurts, but there is some synergy out of the the Skitari Hunter cohort, which I didn't mention that this is a Skitari cohort again. Being able to have the 5-up Feel No Pain for only 1 command point makes them really tough. These guys do, to me, still pack a punch with Sustain 2 on their tasers. Their taser lance is, in fact, a lance and is 2 damage at AP 2. So these guys can push through. Also, their vehicles, so I can target them with Tank Shock. And any stratagems I target them with, on a 5-up, I gain a CP after resolving it. So there's a lot of good stuff out of these guys. Not to mention these wide bases are really going to be able to help me try and do some move blocking and contain my opponent so I'm able to score points really during the early points of the game So if they clear me off, hopefully there won't be enough time for them to catch up on the scoreboard, which is a lot of the premise of some of this army. So that's for the vehicles. Next up, we have our Rangers. We have 5 10-man squads of Rangers. No other option. It's 10 or nothing. These Ranger squads are fully kitted out. Every one of them will have a sniper rifle, the arc rifle, and the plasma gun. So these guys are going to be some of my big damage dealers, my objective getters. They have a 6-inch scout move. They have sticky objectives, and they're going to be a big part of me swarming the board. Now, 2 of the Ranger squads will have a marshal, so they will get full rerolls, and those ones will probably be ones I'm a little more protected on till later in the game, so that they can hopefully be able to still reroll hits and be more valuable when we get into later points of the game when I need to do damage. It's one thing I noticed about last game was being able to have full Ranger squads later in the game were still able to do a lot of good for me. We also, in the infantry column, have 2 squads of Vanguard. These guys will have the sniper rifle, but the rest of them will have the carbine. I do like the carbine. The anti-infantry is nice. It's a nice volume of shots. So I do like the carbine in this squad. Now, one of the squads is going to be joined by a marshal. Since this unit does not scout or infiltrate on its own, the marshal will allow it to scout, so I can get another squad, or infiltrate and then get another squad to be able to pick them up, bring them back, scout move them if need be. A lot of good stuff out of them. With their short range, being able to get them in a more forward position early sounds pretty valuable. And reroll hits on an anti-infantry gun that's 3 shots apiece is pretty tasty. So that's going to be one of the Vanguards. The other one is not going to have that, and they're going to just be objectives. They'll be moving up, trying to get objectives and get on the objectives early. Not as worried if they get burned off because of the fact that they don't have all the other guns. But unlike the Rangers with the galvanic rifle having 30-inch range, their standard carbine is much, much shorter range. So if I put the longer range guns on them, I don't feel I'm going to get the value out of those as I would the Rangers that can fire off from a longer range. And next up, we'll talk about one of the newer additions. We have 2 3-man squads of Cataphragm Breachers. The Breachers have the arc rifle, or that is going to be able to, it's rapid fire 2, so we're going to have 4 shots within 15 because of the 30-inch range, and it's anti-vehicle. This is going to be one of my big choices for anti-vehicle. Dragoons can hit pretty hard. We do have a bulk of the arc rifles, and even the sniper at strength 7 isn't terrible. But these guys with the anti-vehicle, as well as their claw, that gave them the hydraulic claw, have a high damage output to be able to take on vehicles and such. These guys' ability is that if there is a battle line unit within 6 inches of them, they get full rerolls to hit. So these guys will not have a character, nothing joined to them. They're just going to wander around the outside and move around with my infantry. And since I have so many battle line units, for my thoughts, they're probably going to be on full rerolls to hit for the entire game, mostly. Because you have to clear all my infantry, realistically, for me not to have a battle line unit, and I have so many of them. Moving on, we have 2 5-man squads of the Infiltrators. So the Infiltrators, like their name suggests, have infiltrate, so I can forward deploy them and get out there early. Now, because of the relic that I took, or the enhancement to be able to redeploy 3 units, these 2 squads, as well as my Vanguard squad, I can pick them up and bring them out of danger and bring them back to a safer home location. Something I didn't have last game and lost these resources early. Since these are Sicarian units, there is a 1 command point strat that allows me to select 2 Sicarian units and put them into strategic to then bring them back, or 1 infantry unit. So these guys could very well be bouncing around the board and score me a lot of secondaries for only 1 command point. That's a lot more value out of that. They're also really cool with their little Uzi style pistol that's like 5 shots apiece. I love that. And they do have the tasers, so they can sustain 2 and get massive amount of attacks if I roll hot on their combat. So these guys are not necessarily that bad. They also are stealth, which is really cool for them to be -1 to hit, and 2 wounds apiece. I like them. Also, we have the Traxi. Now, I have to double check this, but I believe the Traxi are also Sicarian, so they could be one of my targets for the stratagem. I could pick one of these units, both of these units, or both the Infiltrators. I'm taking the Traxi sterilizers because the Flamer is a excellent Overwatch option, something that my army doesn't have, to be able to hurt infantry on the move. I don't really like the Skystalkers, although the move away ability is nice and they can get a huge amount of distance on that move away. It's basically like they're shooting Nerf guns at stuff, and I really don't like that. I got enough other stuff that's functioning like Nerf guns. I need to make sure that I have some other stuff that can just, well, automatically hit with these guys. They are fast moving. They will not be able to bounce away. Instead, their ability is that they get to reroll wound rolls of 1 with battle line units nearby, or full rerolls with battle line unit nearby. I'm sorry, reroll 1s is the alternative of it, but if the battle line's nearby, they get full rerolls to wound. So a little bit of extra damage out of these guys. They're very cheap, and like I said, I believe they're a Sicarian as well, so I can pick them up and bounce them around. They also have deep strike, so these guys are going to start the game in strategic, so I can drop them in later to continue to put pressure and keep my opponent's army at bay. Last up, we have 2 of the Skatros. I like these guys a lot, actually. I converted both of mine, and they're still painting and waiting, but I like them a lot. They have lone operative. Their 8-inch move makes them a little bit more agile. And they can do, not only can they do some cool little sniper tricks and some battle shock tricks, which could inherently, like, okay, it's hard to fully put out in mind what I'm thinking about with these guys, but in theory, they can shoot at a unit and make it take a battle shock test. So if that unit fails that battle shock, that might mean that I basically can just rule that unit as, quote, like, destroyed in an aspect, because now going after tempting target or any other objective-based secondary, now I don't have to focus on the battle shocked unit that's now OC0 and can focus on the other unit. On top of it, these guys can also just complete secondaries for me. Again, that 8-inch move is really, really nice to be able to get them in position, and since they have a pistol, they could complete actions if they get charged and are stuck in combat and someone tries to tag them. I could still complete some of the action-based secondaries with these guys as well. So I really like them. Need to get these guys painted up, my conversions, because again, I'm not a big fan of the current model. It just seems kind of silly. I feel like it would not do well on the battlefield. But yeah, that is the list. So if you can kind of tell, I already pretty much deployed this thing, so I want to help Lane on time. And since I can move a lot of my army pre-game, like 3 units get picked up and the scout moves get picked up, I can kind of telegraph most of this. The only things that are not really deployed right now are my 2 squads of infiltrators, my Vanguard, and my Traxi, because they deep strike in, so a lot of that stuff is just holding out, and we'll do that in the time being. But that is, we just decided our deployment. We haven't decided our mission yet, just so I could kind of do that to help Lane a little bit with time, because I'm still learning this army, and it takes a lot of time to move a lot of models. So it's good to start with this. I'm kind of like I said, I'm kind of telegraphing where things are, but at the same time too, when Lane starts deploying, I can basically just put a poker chip down next to something and say, okay, this is deployed. This isn't deployed. And if he deploys something that I don't like, where it's something's position, I still have the ability to move it, but at least my whole army is picked up and put where it's supposed to be before we get to that point. Now, like I said, I feel like Ad Mech is a little discouraging as a starting army, and can be discouraging even as a second army, because of the fact that the more competitive nature of it is very linear. And like you can see, I have 70 troops that all come out of one box, 70 models. That's a lot to paint. That's a lot to get ready. And, you know, if that's all you're working on, it might be discouraging. So I feel like a lot of Ad Mech's low numbers deal with the fact that they're an underrepresented faction, because the play style that is needed to play this list competitively may not be exactly the most fun to collect and build. I do think this army is actually going to be a lot of fun. One of the big things that I really do like about this is because of being able to scout move, to redeploy, having the infiltrators on the front line, having the Vanguard on the front line, having the advance in charge Dragoons, having the Traxi can deep strike in. I can put my opponent back and push them back away from the objectives, where they're just forced to just continuously clear through all my Scutari before they can even get to an objective to start scoring points. And if I can do that for turns 2 and 3 and just keep them pushed back where they cannot get to me, that could end up being a win just right there, just on the sheer amount of points that I can push them away from and what I can score right off the get-go in the first 3 turns. I do have a lot of firepower, while things like the Hecaton, which I'm going to be facing tonight, those numbers don't look very good for my infantry. All the things that are not infantry, I can shred really, really well. I got a lot of volume of fire to go into those things. So this is take number 2. We'll see how this does. Definitely look forward to some feedback. I'm very excited to get this on the table. We'll see how it goes. I say get it on the table, but most of it's already there. But I'm definitely excited to get some dice rolling with this thing, see this thing going, because I've been challenged, and that challenge has been accepted. So we got to make this happen. All right, guys, as always, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.